that the confrontation between the Arabs and the Jews isn't really about territory. Or maybe the confrontation of the entire world isn't really about technology. It is a question of two separate civilizations that are now fighting against each other with two different conceptions of the value of human life. Will we ever be able to reconcile that?
That's a very good question. As you know, the three boys that were kidnapped and then murdered, this was a terrorist attack by the Hamas, and that's what began the escalation that we are seeing now today in Operation Protective Edge. Unfortunately, since the establishment of the State of Israel and even before, there has been animosity towards Israel in the Arab world. That animosity, however, has changed over time. If before it was essentially an animosity based on a national competition, competition between the Arab nation that felt that that area belonged to them and the Jewish people who were returning to their ancient homeland. Although then, even at the beginning of the confrontation, there were undertones of a religious conflict, now with all the changes that are happening in the Arab world, the power of nationalism is giving way to the power of theology and radical Islam. The elements of the confrontation between the Arab world and Israel are taking upon stronger religious elements, which means that it's going to be even harder to reconcile, because if there's a national conflict, it can be resolved by a negotiation in which each side addresses their national interests. But there's very little room to compromise on religion, belief, and theology. And that's why through the 66 or even beyond years of Israel's existence, there has been this culture of hate stoked among the Arabs towards Israel, and you see this rejoicing when the Israeli boys were kidnapped and later killed.
I remember, Mr. Shacham, that when I was still functioning as a rabbi in Venezuela, during the first Iraqi war, when the United States, President Bush's father, sent a mission to Iraq, Scuds were flying from Iraq toward Israel, and Israel did not participate in that war. Maybe I was younger then. No, for sure I was younger. I think so, even though some people say I don't get older. But at least in wisdom, I'd like to get older. I remember at that time going to Israel during the war as a sign of solidarity. And I remember a member of my community, Hillel Seraf. He was a great Zionist leader in Venezuela, especially in Keren HaYesod. He met me at the airport with a gift, a gas mask. I hadn't been used to something like this, obviously, but I knew where I was going, but maybe I didn't know exactly what I was doing, otherwise maybe I wouldn't have wanted to go. But I went. I went to Jerusalem, and they said Jerusalem is sort of safe. They are not sending Scuds to Jerusalem. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, Friday night, a siren came out, and we were sent into a safe room, sealed room. Why was that room special? Because they were afraid that there may be some poisonous gases together with the Scuds. Not only the explosion, maybe it'll try to poison part of the population. So there we would be safe from the gases. So I stayed in that room for an hour, I don't remember when, and then the all clear came. But I saw on television that Palestinians, Arabs, were on their rooftops. As the Scuds were coming in, they were applauding. They could have been a victim of that, because the Scuds weren't that great as to where the place they were going to land. They were applauding. How is it possible? Is the hate so great? But something else that is very worrisome. You know, many nations in the world don't sympathize with us as much as they really should. Right now they're worried about whether there is freedom whether it's a jail, Gaza's a jail. You know the history of how Gaza became Arab territory, I am sure. Now it's a jail, but they don't say anything about the missiles that go to Israel. Coming in the car, I heard a Methodist interviewer interview Hillary Clinton. And he said the Methodist Church just passed a resolution that the problem basically is because Israel does not give them the necessary freedoms. That is really the root of the problem. And Hillary Clinton, with great ability, said something altogether different. I am also a Methodist, she said, but that's not what I think is the problem. As a matter of fact, I think she spoke to you before, because she mentioned what you had said already. How come the world doesn't recognize our real rights?